My son Tommy has always had an active imagination. Like any other child, he would invent imaginary friends to keep him company during playtime. I thought it was adorable, a sign of his creativity and innocence. Little did I know that his imaginary friend wasn't so imaginary after all. It all began innocently enough. Tommy would talk about his friend Charlie as if he were a real person. He would tell me stories about their adventures, how they played together in the backyard or had tea parties in his room. At first, I brushed it off as typical childhood make-believe, nothing to be concerned about. But as the days went on, I started to notice something peculiar. Whenever Tommy played with Charlie, strange things would happen. I could swear I saw objects move on their own, doors that slammed shut, and I would catch glimpses of shadows darting around the house. It sent chills down my spine, and a nagging unease settled in the pit of my stomach. One evening, as I tucked Tommy into bed, he looked up at me with those innocent eyes and said, "Mommy, Charlie wants to sleep in my room tonight." A shiver ran down my spine, but I smiled and replied, "Sweetie, Charlie isn't real. He's just your imaginary friend." Tommy's face fell, his lip quivering. "But Mommy, he's right here. He talks to me all the time." I tried to reassure him, to convince him that it was all just a game, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to Charlie than met the eye. That night, as I lay in bed, the house was enveloped in an unnatural silence. It was as if the air itself held its breath, waiting for something to happen. As I drifted off to sleep, I was jolted awake by a blood-curdling scream. It was Tommy, his terrified cries echoing through the hallway. I rushed to his room, my heart pounding in my chest. What I saw froze me in my tracks. Tommy was huddled in the corner of his room, tears streaming down his face, but it wasn't his fear that gripped me. It was the sight of Charlie. Standing beside Tommy's bed was a shadowy figure, its features indistinct and malevolent. The room felt charged with an otherworldly presence, and a chill permeated the air. I mustered every ounce of courage within me and stepped forward, my voice shaking. "Who are you? What do you want with my child?" The figure turned towards me, its eyes piercing through the darkness. A cold voice emanated from its form, whispering like a breeze through a graveyard. "I am Charlie. I am his friend, his guardian, and I want to play." My blood ran cold, and I grabbed Tommy, pulling him into my arms. "You're not welcome here. Leave us alone." But Charlie only laughed, a bone-chilling sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Oh, I'm afraid I can't do that. Tommy has chosen me. He belongs to me now." Fear and anger coursed through my veins as I confronted this malevolent entity. I refused to let it take hold of my child. With all the strength I could muster, I gathered Tommy in my arms and fled the room, out of the house, into the safety of the night. We never returned to that house again. It became a distant memory, a place tainted by the presence of a malevolent spirit. In the years that followed, we found solace in a new home, far away from the dark shadows that had haunted us. Tommy's encounters with Charlie became nothing more than a haunting memory, a story we whispered in hushed voices on stormy nights. But deep down, I knew that some things can never truly be forgotten. And though we moved on, I couldn't help but wonder if Charlie still lurked in the shadows, waiting for another unsuspecting child to cross his path. I've always cherished my alone time at home. It's my sanctuary, a place where I can unwind and escape from the chaos of the outside world. But one fateful night, the tranquility I usually found within those four walls turned into a nightmare I couldn't escape. It started like any other evening. The house was peaceful, and I relished the solitude. I curled up on the couch, ready to lose myself in a movie marathon. The flickering light from the TV and the cozy warmth of my blanket made me feel safe and secure. As the night wore on, however, a subtle unease began to creep up on me. It was as if the familiar creaks and groans of the house were becoming something more sinister. I shook off the nagging feeling, attributing it to my overactive imagination. But the uneasiness persisted, refusing to be dismissed. Every little sound amplified my anxiety. The gentle ticking of the clock seemed to echo through the empty rooms, and the occasional gust of wind rattled the windows as if something unseen was trying to get in. As I settled into bed, hoping to find solace in sleep, the house seemed to come alive. Whispers danced on the edge of my consciousness, taunting me from the dark corners of my mind. I told myself it was just the wind or the glass of wine that was almost empty. But deep down, I knew something was amiss. The feeling of being watched became more intense and a shiver ran down my spine. I pulled the covers tighter around me, trying to ward off the chill that seemed to seep into my bones. And then it happened. A noise that couldn't be explained away. Footsteps, distinct and deliberate, echoed from downstairs. Panic surged through my veins, and I clutched my phone tightly, contemplating calling for help. But a part of me hesitated, afraid that acknowledging the intruder would only make things worse. With bated breath, I strained my ears, trying to discern any movement. The house fell silent once more, as if holding its breath. Fear gnawed at my insides, but curiosity got the better of me. I couldn't ignore the need to investigate, to ensure my safety. Gripping a flashlight tightly in my trembling hand, I crept downstairs, each step careful and deliberate. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath my weight, betraying my presence. The stillness of the house was oppressive, suffocating even, as I ventured further into the unknown. The beam of my flashlight illuminated the darkened hallway, casting eerie shadows on the walls. My heart raced in my chest, a drumbeat of trepidation. I checked every room, each one revealing nothing out of the ordinary. It was as if the sound of footsteps had vanished into thin air. Just as I was about to give up and retreat to the safety of my room, I heard it, a soft, scratching noise coming from the attic. Dread settled in the pit of my stomach, but I couldn't ignore it. I had to know what was causing the disturbance. With a mixture of determination and fear, I climbed the stairs to the attic, the weight of anticipation heavy on my shoulders. The door groaned as I pushed it open, revealing a dark void beyond. My flashlight beam cut through the blackness, illuminating the forgotten treasures and discarded memories that lay within. But there, in the far corner, huddled amidst the forgotten boxes, was a figure. It was hunched and twisted, its features obscured by long, unkempt hair. A wave of revulsion washed over me as I realized that this was no intruder, but something far more sinister. The figure turned towards me, its eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. A cold chill ran down my spine, and I took an involuntary step back. There was an unnaturalness about its appearance, a grotesqueness that sent a shudder through my entire being. Suddenly, the figure lunged forward, emitting a guttural growl that froze me in place. I felt a surge of adrenaline, my instincts screaming at me to run. I turned on my heels, racing down the attic stairs as fast as my trembling legs would carry me. But as I reached the safety of the ground floor, I heard the creaking of the attic door. The figure had escaped its confines and was descending upon me, fueled by a malevolence I couldn't comprehend. Panic consumed me, and I sprinted towards the front door, desperate to escape the clutches of whatever horror lurked within my home. I burst out into the rain-soaked night, the storm matching the turmoil within me. I didn't look back, fearing that the darkness that haunted my house would follow me. As I stumbled away, I vowed to never be home alone again, for the terror I had experienced was a haunting that would forever be etched into my memory.